Hello, I'm here with Susan Crawford, very good friend of mine, fellow designer, who's very busy, working at the moment on a book that's coming out in February, the Vintage Shetland Project. This is something she's been working on for a number of years, and she's going to tell us all about it. Thank you,
Hello.
Susan.
Pleasure. Hello.
You're next to my favourite one. Shall we start with talking about this one?
Yes, we could do this one. Well, all the garments are from the Shetland Museum archives, first of all, and I've been very privileged to be allowed to go into the archives and pick a number of pieces that I think say something important about Shetland, about the history of knitting, or women's social history, or about the people who actually knitted the garments or wore the garments.
So this isn't just a pattern collection, is a lot of the book going to be a discussion about the history behind the garments as well?
It is indeed,
Fantastic.
yes. Yeah, every single garment has got an essay or a story to go with it.
Wonderful.
That will tell you more about them or something that
the people that knitted
it. It could be. Some of them are about the people who knitted it, some of them are about the people who wore them.
Right.
Some of them are about their relevance in history with regards to fashion, or with regards to Shetland knitting itself. So there's an awful lot to say, actually, awful lot.
How many garments are in?
There were 26, but since we went up there 3 weeks ago, there are now 27.
Oh!
Because
there is
a bonus one I needed an extra piece that sort of brought everything together, and it just so happened that in the museum archive on this occasion the piece showed itself to me, so we now have what I feel is the final piece in the jigsaw.
Wonderful.
That brings the story to a conclusion.
Wonderful, thank you. And so tell us a little bit about this particular design, maybe a little bit about Shetland knitting in general, for anyone that doesn't know, because I don't know who's watching this, they might not know what Shetland knitting is, Susan.
Right. Well, Shetland is the most northern islands of the British Isles. Mm-hmm. It is closer to Norway than it is to mainland UK.
Right.
And it has a long and important connection with the hand knitting industry. Fair owl knitting has been most popular since about the mid 1920s.
Yes.
Right through to the current day.
What made it popular?
It became popular in the 20s. Basically, it was a high fashion item.
Right.
And what particularly started the trend off was that it was worn by a celebrity. In this case, it was Edward VIII, who was married to Mrs. Simpson, to Wallis Simpson.
And this while he was Prince of Wales at that time?
Yeah. He was given a sweater by a gentleman called Arthur Anderson, who was a merchant in Shetland. He was also happens to be a resident on the small island where we've also done all the photography.
Vela.
So there's all these extra little connections with people who've been significant in Shetland's knitting history. So he provided Edward with the sweater. He then wore it on a golfing tournament when he was photographed by the press.
Right.
And the rest is history. It just went absolutely
There's a portrait of it
crazy.
Somewhere, isn't
there?
There
is.
Yeah.
There is a portrait. Which
him
is
wearing. He looks very relaxed from what I remember in this portrait.
Yeah, I don't think the colours are particularly true, and it doesn't exactly show the pattern of the fair owl garment off properly, but it's
more
pretty much
pretty
much what he wore.
Yeah.
So that really started the ball rolling, and then it just went crazy for them, and people mainly in London and Edinburgh and the big cities were ordering in colourwork garments to be sold from their shops. So that was done via merchants who got individual females usually to bring their knitting to their shops in Lerwick, and they would barter them usually for tea, for tobacco, for things like that.
The truck system. I've
That's
heard
correct.
Of that, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the women didn't generally get paid in cash.
Yes.
Unfortunately.
So, what's characteristic about Fair Isle? What's the thing that stands out to make something recognisably a Fair Isle
There
design?
are a number of characteristics. I have to say, some of the garments that are picked don't actually subscribe to the characteristics.
break the mould.
They do, and
Right.
I rather admire them for that. And
Okay.
that's why I picked them. However, usually 2 colours to a row. That's one of the most significant
Yes.
things. The work is normally done round and round and round,
Yes.
and then cut open where there needs to be an opening.
Steeking.
We call it steeking. It was never called steeking.
Oh, what did they call it?
They just used to call it about that you would have a bridge of stitches and
Right.
you would cut it. It didn't really have
A special-
magical word.
Right.
That's sort of been given to it retrospectively.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
Ah, okay.
But yeah, so it would be cut open where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Other characteristics, it was usually a tube with quite dropped shoulders, then the armholes would be cut open, the stitches would be picked up and the sleeves would be knitted downwards.
So fairly shapeless then?
Fairly shapeless to begin with.
Because this isn't shapeless, is it?
It isn't shapeless, and yet it's unshaped.
All right, okay.
So,
You're going to tell us how?
well, it just, I think that what gives it its shape is the fact that you've got this moss stitch band that makes it
Flares
look like
a bit.
it flares out
Yeah.
slightly.
Yeah.
Corrugated rib, which is this here, tends
Yes.
to do the same after it's been worn a little while.
Right.
Quite often the tunics from the 20s and 30s look like they're shaped.
Yes.
But it's actually the corrugated rib just starts to relax
Ah,
and creates a
yes.
flare at the bottom.
Yes.
But in actual fact, when you count the stitches, the garments are completely straight.
So they're knitted in the round, and if it's a cardigan, it's cut down the centre front.
Yes,
And-
usually.
And it's just a combination of tubes, basically. Then a tube for the sleeve.
It is,
attached
yeah.
to the arm,
knit-
and is the armhole steeped as well?
The
usually
armhole
then?
is
Right.
steeped as well.
Okay.
It's normally very pragmatic knitting. It's done for speed, for economy of movement, for minimum amount of finishing.
Right. And is there anything particular about the patterns themselves, the stitch patterns,
Yeah.
that makes them distinctively
The patterns are
sterile?
usually, again, not always, but usually symmetrical.
Right.
They're both symmetrical horizontally and vertically.
Now I recognise something here.
This is the OXO
Yes.
pattern.
That's
yeah.
classically Fair Isle,
It
isn't
is,
it? Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
So you can see you've got the O and you've got the X,
Yes.
which symbolises the OXO.
Yes. And this is, I recognise this is a very Nordic pattern. Isn't it?
And
Yes.
yet this is quite early for the Nordic sort of influences, but when you look, they do seem to occur from much earlier
Right.
than maybe we think. But yeah, this has got some really unusual patterns. It's also got the nice little hearts
That's
come,
gorgeous, isn't it?
which has become very symbolic with Fair Isle knitting as well.
Yes.
And usually the colours always run from outside to centre, then back from centre to outside. The colours
So it's
are always
symmetrical
symmetrical.
horizontally as well as vertically.
Usually.
Right.
You do have the odd one, if we switch over to this one here, which is a
Okay.
later one, that actually uses one of the little ship motifs, which
Yes.
they used quite a lot, which obviously the motif isn't symmetrical, but the colours still are. You would never get it where the colours differed top and bottom.
Okay.
The colours are always the same within each motif. But you do find these occasional ones where they're not symmetrical, top and bottom, in terms of motif. Then in between the motifs you often have what's called a peery, which means a little, so little patterns.
So these would
pale
be
blue and
peeries,
white ones are peeries.
and the same on here, this little
Yeah, see, this one's
zigzag pattern,
interesting
it's
'cause
one-
it's got
the same one all the way through.
This,
isn't it?
well, I would say that's a filler, and
Yes.
they're the peeries.
All right.
So I would say these little
Yes.
blue and yellow ones are probably the peeries.
Yes.
And that's more like a filler because that's just the same zigzag all the way,
Yes.
so that you haven't got a plain brown band in between the. So this is a slightly more unusual construction.
There are
in
some
terms of
details
pattern.
on this that I know we love. I love this collar detail.
Yes,
But
yeah.
I know you love the shoulder.
I
Tell
love-
us about the shoulder,
I
Susan.
just love the fact that they've used. I don't know whether you can get this, but there is a lovely little pattern running down the shoulder that uses the blue and yellow of the peery motifs.
Gorgeous.
Just to finish it off
Yeah.
really nicely. And of course, on this particular one, it's seamless. The
Yes.
shoulder has been grafted.
Yes. Where's the graft? Can we see? I can't tell.
No, I can't tell either from here. I think it's there.
Okay.
I think it's there.
That blue line there.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's the yeah.
And it
that's
gets
the graft
tighter
there.
towards the end
yeah.
here, I can see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They're not
Okay.
always grafted. I have found a fair number that are actually done with a 3-needle cast off.
Really?
Yeah.
On the original vintage
Yeah.
Shetland, because I think of that as something fairly recent.
Yeah.
But even in these older,
Oh, yes.
older garments, you
Yes.
find 3-needle bind off.
You
Wow.
do. You also, this isn't one of them, but I also have a number where short rows have been used on the sleeves.
Which I also think of as very recent. Yes.
Yeah, there are an awful lot of the techniques that we think we've come up with.
Yes.
These have done already.
Fantastic.
So I think it shows that actually the knitting at this time that we've now turned into a tradition was innovative and experimental, and it was design led. It
Yes.
was very much trying new things to see how far they could push the boundaries of the technique, really.
Well, it's wonderful that you're doing this fantastic book to celebrate it. I can't wait for it to come out. I will, of course, be buying a copy, and
That'll be good.
I hope lots of the people that have seen this video today will also buy a copy and support this fantastic project, which
Thank
is
you.
a real gift to the knitting community. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you very much, Anne. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Yeah, we're still recording.